Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida TV. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro on this Monday, May 13. How is everyone doing tonight? Thank you for watching the Sick Podcast on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. What's going on? All right, we're going to get to it. The Sick Podcast is partnered and sponsored by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. Also brought to you in part by La Bitte TV, brewed in Quebec, a winner of a dozen international awards. La Bitte TV offers quality microbrewery beers made with premium ingredients for everyone's taste. La Bitte TV, embrace your true nature. Also brought to you in part by Playground. Step into the excitement of Playground with the mystery high hand promotion every day starting at 10 a.m. You have a chance to win a share of over $120,000 in cash prizes available until May 31st. Whether you play from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily or join the late night action from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. from Sunday to Thursday, you could win up to $25,000. For more details, visit playground.ca. Don't miss out. Swing by Playground and get in on the winning. And also brought to you in part by Accent Insurance Solutions. The website is accentassurance.com. You know all insurance isn't created equal, and you know where to find the right solution for you. Accent Insurance, that is. Accent doesn't sell insurance. They shop insurance for you to find the right product right on the money. Whatever your insurance needs, home, automobile, or business, call the Accent team at 514-363-3636 and get the right solution at the right price. accentassurance.com once again. We're talking Montreal Canadiens hockey, and he was a collaborator during the hockey season, and he's going to be a collaborator, of course, even when the Canadiens season is over, which is now, and the playoffs are going on. Let's bring him in from Sportsnet and Sportsnet.ca. Eric Engels, how are you, bud?
I'm good, man.
Good, man. Happy to talk to you. It's been a while. Are you not covering any series right now, or what's going on? What are you doing?
Right now is a 2-week break. I'm watching all the hockey, but a little 2-week break after a long season and covering Winnipeg and Colorado. So paying close attention, and we'll see if we get reactivated soon.
And speaking of Colorado, their game started at 9:30 p.m. And once again, in all transparency, we are recording before the hockey game start because anyone who's anyone, I'm going to say it again for the 100th time in the world of hockey and covers this sport, obviously wants to be watching the playoffs and not be podcasting while the playoffs are going on. So Carolina and the Rangers started at 7 p.m. tonight, and that series is that game's probably over. It's probably not. It's probably been extended. It's the series could be over. But, you know, this plays, of course, at 10 p.m. or just after. So we don't know because we have pre-recorded right before this game. And Dallas and Colorado, a 9:30 start with Dallas leading the series 2-1. So, you know what? There's so much to talk about, and I'm sure we'll talk about some of the stories. There was a suspension today, of course, to Vancouver Canucks player. One game goes out to Carson Soucy, who cross-checked Connor McDavid right in the face. Zadorov with a stick work on Connor McDavid, and he got fined $5,000 by the NHL's Department of Player Safety. And so it's probably something we're going to talk about. There's much talk going on in the Boston Bruins series because now there's a replay that's being shown that clearly shows that Sam Bennett punched Brad Marchand in the face. Marchand missed the rest of Game 3. He missed all of Game 4. He might miss Game 5, and the Florida Panthers might end up eliminating the Boston Bruins. They lead them 3-1, and it just seems kind of odd that the Bruins are without Marchand, and the Florida Panthers have Sam Bennett, who, by the way, scored a goal that ended up being the equalizing goal yesterday. a lot of controversy there as well, because if you go by the rule book, that goal should have been disallowed, you would think. But of course, video review says, no, even though there was a cross check to Charlie Coyle's back and he collided with Jeremy Swayman was still in his crease and it didn't impede him in trying to make a save. We'll agree to disagree on that one. Eric, there's so many storylines, and I know we're going to get to the Canadians, but I don't even know where you want to start. So where do you want to start?
Well, first of all, I didn't need to see another replay of the Bennett hit to know that he punched Marchand in the face. That was pretty obvious to me after seeing the first couple of replays for it. Probably pretty obvious to anybody who's ever played hockey what he was doing there. That's not a typical way of bracing yourself for a hit. Was listening to Elliot Friedman and Jeff Merrick talk about this on their podcast, and Elliot bringing up that some of the players, a lot of players were talking about this hit, obviously, and one of them texted Elliot just saying that, you look at Bennett breaking his left hand, if he suffered a left hand injury before this series and coming back inevitably, or whether he broke it or not, wanting to protect that at all costs and kind of extending his right to brace himself for the hit could be a reasonable reason for why that happened. But to me, it's pretty clear. And I tend to believe that there is a lot of cross current. I tend to believe there's a lot of consistency in the way the Department of Player Safety does its work. I actually have talked with a number of them to understand better how they evaluate things. And I think if you go look at all the video explanations, you can really find rhyme and reason in how they do things. I'm not sure why this didn't qualify. I don't know if it was really hard for them to prove that Bennett punched Marchand and that he wasn't just bracing himself. If I had to guess, I would bet that's probably the reason. I didn't speak to anybody there. I didn't inquire about it. But I thought it could have been viewed as roughing. And once you deem that it is roughing, when a player gets hurt on the play, it gives you the opportunity to implement supplemental discipline and suspend it. And I think that's what should have happened there. And it didn't. And as far as the goal is concerned, the controversial goal, by the definition of goaltender interference, the refs had full justification to be able to say, yes, there is a collision. Yes, Coyle is shoved in, but that Swayman, it didn't impede him from doing his job, and that he wouldn't have been able to make the save anyways. I think the Bruins were more upset that Coyle was shoved in and therefore couldn't clear the rebound himself. If the Bruins were really upset, they could have been arguing for an interference penalty on Bennett, period, tender interference. Not that that's reviewable. But, I'm with you in that I think the goal should have been disallowed, because we've seen other goals in these playoffs and also throughout the last few years be disallowed for much less than that. So, by the way,
there's just so much on the line, right? There's so much on the line. Eric, look, I'm not going to say...
let's not call it a cross check. It's a shove. Yes. I understand when people see that motion, they think automatically cross check, but not all cross checks are created equal. And if I hear you. And the videos that have gone out to teams about what constitutes as a cross check, that wasn't it. And that's why when you read the league's explanation as to why they allowed that goal, they use the word shove. They use the word shove, not cross check, because they believe, I don't know what they believe, but if just seeing why it got disallowed, I think it's reasonable to assume that maybe they saw it as Coyle went down a little easier than he should have. And at the end of the day, goal's a goal. I think it should have been disallowed, though, personally.
I hear you, but I just look. No league is perfect, but I don't think any league comes close to the National Hockey League in terms of inconsistency of the way the games are called, inconsistency in terms of what a penalty is, what a penalty isn't, inconsistency in terms of penalties that are the amount of calls. It's just there's a different rule for the postseason. Everyone is supposed to up their game in the postseason, and they're supposed to be at their best, right? You have an 82 game season for every team in the league so that everyone gets primed up. And I understand some are going to be tired. It's only normal. It is quite a marathon. It's the most. It's a very, very long, difficult season for the referees included. But it's just there's an incredible amount of inconsistency. And then you read on social media that Gary Bettman told the GMs and everything at one of their meetings that earlier in the season that, hey, don't be critical of the refereeing, especially come playoff time. And
well, that was the coaches. I mean, that was the initial preseason coaches GMs meeting where they basically told all coaches, like, we don't want to see video clips of you guys cursing out the referees on the ice. It's not a good look for any of us. And speaking with a lot of coaches, because I was one of the 3 or 4 reporters that was at that meeting, all of them understood. Like at the end of the day, it's a game where there's emotions are high and humans make errors, and that's always been a part of officiating, that they're not going to get it right 100% of the time, and they prefer to have some more civil discourse because the coaches don't look good. And some of the coaches were talking about feeling embarrassed with the way they looked on some of those video clips that were shown to them. But at the end of the day, you can't divorce emotions from these situations, especially when the stakes are as high as they are in the playoffs. And I understood Montgomery's response yesterday to all that stuff that was going on in that game and that goal being allowed. I understand, I didn't see Don Sweeney's comments today, but I did see some tweets about the validity of potentially making every series has a supervisor for officiating, and every game in the NHL has a supervisor, by the way, that supervises officiating. And I think, much like the NBA, those people should be available to the media. They should have some accountability for how things get called, why they're called a certain way. It's a level of transparency that the fans deserve, so that there's less questions as to why there are so many quote unquote inconsistencies in the game. If you want to say that our stuff is patterned, we do make mistakes, but we do have consistency. And if you want to come out after every game or whenever there is a controversy and explain it, maybe people will understand better what the thinking was in these situations, and it'll be less acrimony over the job that they're doing, because they have a very difficult job. We shouldn't understand.
Yeah, but they got a very difficult job, but it's the National Hockey League. I don't know. They don't help themselves. I mean, we're at a point in time where they have more cameras in the arenas and more different angles than ever before. They got all the technology in the world, the amount of technology right now, the stuff that you can do. And it just seems to me that with millions and millions and millions of dollars on the line, and the fact that you can end up screwing other teams, it's crazy to me with all the technology that you have at your availability. Anyway, look, let's move on. It was Cole Caulfield versus Juraj Slafkovsky earlier today. Did you have an eye on that, or did you say, not really much of a tournament, not really much of a game, so let's pass. Let's go play golf instead.
I wasn't home for it. I was at the gym working out, and then I actually had a golf lesson, which was great. But I was keeping my eye on the score and I heard it was a great hockey game. Beyond that, I'd seen both teams play other games in the lead up to the tournament and the tournament itself, and it's exciting hockey. And I think Slafkovsky, who's been the source of a couple of real nice highlights so far. Yeah. You just see how much growth he went through this season.
He gained a lot of confidence. He gained a lot of confidence,
but he gained a methodology that he's employing in these games. There's some of the things that he's doing in these games. I understand, he was drafted because of what he did in these games a few years ago and what he did in these games at the Olympics and playing in this type of competition. But he looks like a different player right now because of all the things that he did in Montreal over the last, year. And good for him. We hear oftentimes, and obviously with the tournament in Ostrava in the Czech Republic, how revered Slafkovsky is in that part of the world. There was conversations where you think this is pressure in Montreal, you should see what I deal with back home. And we're getting a bit of a glimpse into that. We see pictures of the fans piling into the arena, all of them wearing Slafkovsky jerseys.
He's got rock star status right now for his national team.
No matter what happens, Tony, this is great for him. This is great experience. It's great exposure. It's a great opportunity for him to continue to grow as a player. And I think there's nothing but positive in that. He's bringing what he took from this season there and B, that he's under that type of spotlight, it only will help him deal with the one he's under here, which is white hot.
You know, I find the competitiveness. It's really like we saw it during the season. We knew he was competitive, and we knew that even if he would score, but they would lose a game, he wouldn't be very happy. But that competitiveness, I find, is going to another level at the World Championships. And for some, it's just, you know, they're like that when they play with their national team, more so than their actual club team. But Slafkovsky, it's not the case. It's just that he's growing so much. His confidence is growing so much. And what we're seeing right now, I'm sure you're going to see it plus a little bit more even with the Canadians. He's getting better and better every day. He's getting more and more competitive every day. He's getting more and more confident every day, to the point where he's going to end up being, and on some shifts this year, he was already, he's going to end up being a force to be reckoned with. Like, he's going to be a force in the league.
Not just that. I mean, I think you've got a budding leader, right? Like, I think you've got a guy who has all those qualities that scream leadership. You know, there are different types of leaders. There are rah-rah leaders. But you know, it never works if you don't lead by example. And I think Slafkovsky has taken some things from some of the guys in Montreal who are that competitive as well. And you and I talked about this last week about how some of the fans probably over the last 2 years got exhausted with all the talk about culture and building healthy culture. But again, like, this stuff cannot be dismissed. It is at the foundation and at the root of successful hockey teams and sports teams and teams in general, in business and anything, that you have to bring a certain attitude that puts the team above yourself. And I think Slafkovsky exhibits all those characteristics, but he's not alone. There's a lot of players that are part of the core moving forward for the Canadians that have those characteristics. And I think Slafkovsky, you know, for as young as he is a leader in development. He's a guy who is a natural leader, I think, with his attitude.
You know, once again, everyone knows that the Montreal Canadiens would love to add a player or two to their top six. They already got one line figured out, of course, and that's the line of Nick Suzuki, Juraj Slafkovsky, and Cole Caulfield. Not that it can't be broken up to actually add balance to the other lines, because that's been done before. And I'm sure at one point they will be split up, whether it's temporary or permanent, I don't know. But there's also another school of thought, which is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And right now it's not broken. It doesn't look like it will be. Kirby Dach, of course, is on your next line. And now all of a sudden, a lot of people are looking and saying, okay, Owen House can be that guy. But people are also looking outside of the Montreal Canadiens organization. And there are different ways to acquire a player on offense. A lot of people are looking at the 5th pick overall saying, hey, they should absolutely go out and draft a forward. Kent Hughes said at Equal Talent, they will draft a forward. Is it a foregone conclusion to you, Eric? And we're not there yet because, of course, we're still about a month and a half away. But is it a foregone conclusion for you today, a month and a half away from the draft, that the Canadiens will draft a forward with the 5th pick overall?
You know what? It's obviously really tempting to say yes, right? You look at their depth chart, you start to piece it all together. You know, obviously you lean that way, whether you're me, whether you're you, whether you're anybody who's looking at the Canadiens and saying, what's missing here? I think everybody knows. But the one thing about this administration that has shown a certain pattern that we should pay attention to is that they've done things that have been completely unpredictable over the last couple drafts, starting with picking Slafkovsky. Up until the day that he was chosen, there wasn't a lot of people who were saying like they're going to go for this kid. Reinbacher, there was a sniff of them liking him and this and that, but there was also a major school of thought back then that they wouldn't turn away from the type of talent that a kid like Michkov has, or the opportunity to draft a forward 5th overall. Yeah. Nobody saw the Kirby Dach trade coming. Nobody saw them moving Alexander Romanov. Nobody saw the Alex Newhook trade coming either. So I think it's so tempting to sit there and say, okay, they're going to take a forward. They've got the 5th overall pick. There are multiple ways for them to fill that need, as you just alluded to, Tony. And it won't necessarily have to be with that pick. They have to pay attention to who's going to go with the first 4, right? If the 4 best forwards on their list are gone in the first 4 picks, or 3 of the 4, or their top 3, and they feel there's separation there, and then all of a sudden The Russian defenseman, the big righty, I don't want to mess up his name, Lashunov?
Yeah.
Someone will correct me, I'm sure.
You know what? I call me stupid, and I'm not going to pretend to be following all the prospects as much as Grant McCagg or, any other independent scout that's out there or team scout that's out there. But I still have a feeling they're still going to go for a forward. Why? Because there's no consensus pick on defense either. Some say Levshunov, but some say Perek, some say Byam. There's not a consent. Some say Siliev, the big 6'7" defenseman who plays in the KHL. There's no consensus.
Again, it's logical just looking at their depth chart. But one of the things we've overestimated in their depth chart is what they have on defense. In that, of course, on the left side, they're extremely deep. But once you get past Logan Mailloux and David Reinbacher on the right side, where does it go? There's, Justin Barron. I don't want to take anything away from him, but this is a huge – we're going to see where this goes with this player this summer. And if he remains within the fold, he's going to be in a real dogfight to prove that he's ready for full-time action in the NHL, where he's shown it in spurts, and maybe he's just at that blossoming point where it actually works out. But, for people who are already putting Mailloux's name and Reinbacher's name onto the Canadiens roster in pen for next year, they're still young and developing. And if they could take their time with their players, I'm sure they would. But beyond those two guys, there isn't so much depth that you can look at it and say, this isn't a need also. Is it the most pressing need? No, which is why the speculation obviously leads to they're going to take it forward. The only thing I'm saying, and it's a cautionary message here, because I'd love to sit here and predict with 100% certainty they're going to go grab a forward with the 5th overall pick. Just remember who these guys are and what they've done, because they've been unpredictable to a certain degree. They have done things that nobody saw coming, specifically around the draft. The one thing I will say, I do think they're going to fill their needs at forward. Maybe not all of them this summer, but they're going to fill some of them. I don't know which method it will be by which they go and do that. And I would also be looking at them at the draft. And I think a lot of teams will be looking at them at the draft, and a lot of interested parties, fans, whoever will be looking at the draft and saying, what do they have up their sleeve this year? Because some of the things they've done already, as I just mentioned, I couldn't have, I was as piped in as I could be, and I couldn't have predicted Kirby Dach coming here and Alexander Romanov going out the door and Juraj Slafkovsky. It was up until 24 hours before that draft was when I started to really hear a push for Slafkovsky. And even then, there was still some uncertainty until I think it was Bob McKenzie who put it out there that they're taking the big Slovak kid and not Shane Wright. So there's a lot of moving pieces around this stuff, and I think my head tells me, oh, you know what, probably going to be a forward there. But if they have separation between who they've deemed to be the best forwards and the next guy on the list, and those three guys are gone in the first 4 picks, and all of a sudden they're sitting with a defenseman that they thought would go even in the top 4, I do believe they'll make the pick based on who the best player available is, knowing that also their needs are not completely filled at right defense. I think that is something that we have to watch out for. I'm not saying it's likely, but it's something we have to watch out for.
I don't remember when was the last time I watched so many scouting reports. I got to tell you, on YouTube lately, I've been watching Berkeley Catton, who plays for Spokane in the WHL. TJ Ginla, of course, who also plays in the WHL. He plays for Kelowna. Beckett Seneca is one guy that Grant McCagg told me to keep an eye on. He's a 6'2", about $180 right winger who plays for the Oshawa Generals. Of course, a lot of people are really enamored with Caden Lindstrom, who's close to being probably about 6'4" centerman. And this is the hardest thing, though, is to choose who's going to end up having the best career. It's the hardest job in hockey is probably the job of a scout. It's that hard. So on that note, in terms of going out and trying to get forwards, would you think that signing a player out of the KHL is a strong possibility?
Maybe. I wouldn't characterize it as a strong possibility. And I understand that there's one out there, and I, again, don't want to butcher his name, that recently scored, 31 goals.
I think it's Maxim Tsyplakov.
Yeah, right. Tsyplakov. I don't think the Canadians will turn away from options like that. I think they have their own prospect in a player like Oliver Kapanen, who had a phenomenal season and is at the World Championships, and I'm sure they'll be interested in speaking to him. You have to make your decisions, not just, there's a scoring forward out there and we got to go get, you have to make your decisions on where you see that player playing in your lineup and who they're, whether or not they fit specifically what you're looking for in filling out those spots that they need to fill. And that's why when I say, I know they'll address their need at forward this summer, I don't know that they will fully. I don't know if they, to me, in my view, they need 2 top 6 forwards. No matter what you think of Alex Newhook and his potential to be a top 6 forward, I still think they need 2 guys who are guaranteed top 6 forwards. And I
agree with you.
I think it's a success this summer if they get 1. It's a home run if they get 2. But it won't just be 2 to get 2 guys who would fit in the top 6. It will be getting the guys who they think fit best with their team that can help them carry forward towards their goal of becoming a Stanley Cup contender year over year. It won't just be, he's talented and we don't have that much talent and we better go get. No, they're building a team here. They're not. It's not a fantasy roster, right?
Yeah,
so,
I think it was it Elliot Friedman that brought up Tsyplakov's name, I think, saying that there's about a good 12 teams in the National Hockey League that are interested in the Montreal Canadiens, are one of them?
Yeah, I think he's being shopped around by his agent to various teams, and I'm sure there will be meetings happening with the player if they haven't already. But a 31 goal scorer in the KHL doesn't necessarily translate to being a guaranteed top 6 forward in the NHL. Maybe it does. We'll find out, if that player ends up in North America playing for an NHL team and gets that type of opportunity to show what he can do. But I don't know enough about the player right now to sit here and tell you that he's guaranteed to be that, and that I know and that the Canadians have definitely spoken to him and are zeroing in on signing him. I don't have that information right now at all. All I've been told is that, he's being shopped around by his agent. There are some teams that have had a look at him, and we'll see where it goes. It wouldn't surprise me if it's with an NHL team, but people have to. I think there is such an excitement in the Canadiens fan base to add premium talent up front that you have to be able to take a step back with a clear mind and say it can't just be anybody. It has to be who they identify as the proper people to, be it sacrifice assets or cap space or whatever it is, because you don't get 2-3 tries at getting this right.
Yeah.
You get it wrong and you're setting yourself back. Forget about moving forward. So there's a lot that weighs into those decisions. And you know what? I bring it back to the draft conversation. You talked about how you haven't watched as many scouting reports as you have in the most recent days. For all the information that we have available to us, and there's some guys out there. I think about this kid, David St. Louis, who does fantastic work for Elite Prospects, and I watch his videos.
Yeah, he's good. Yeah, he's good. Yeah.
As much as they know and as much as they share with us, scouts and amateur scouts are watching players for over a 5 to 10 year period of the evolution from each stage to the next, not just identifying the top talent in an upcoming draft, but identifying how those players evolved with each step and whether or not they showed a rate of progression, and getting to know people around those players and speaking to coaches and general managers and trainers and uncles and fathers and mothers. There is so much that goes into these decisions, where you might be sitting on your couch at home and saying, wow, I watched 15 videos about Michkov and they better take this kid. You can't even wrap your head around the depth of analysis that goes into whether or not a team will select a given player. It's not just about their highlight reel that you and I get to watch.
I'm happy that you brought up David St. Louis' name, because there are a couple of people on Twitter that are really, really good follows, and some of them end up being really, really good stories. Take the story of Yannick St. Pierre, right? Who a couple of years ago was Nick Bobrov's reference point, and he would go watch him on YouTube and some of the videos that he was doing. And he had what was it? He had a YouTube video that was called Draft Dynasty or something, and followed by more than 10,000 people. And the Canadiens ended up drafting him as their video coach, right? A couple of years ago. And it's kind of cool. It's like somebody would be watching our podcast, and all of a sudden, Grant McCagg gets hired by the Montreal Canadiens. That would be kind of cool. But honestly, anyway,
David St. Louis and Mitch Brown and these guys who have done these incredibly thorough video scouting, they should keep doing what they're doing, because people will notice. We've noticed, but people much more powerful than you and I, although you're a very powerful person, will potentially notice and hire them. And sure. I think they do great work. But I will tell you, all the people who think that they are amateur scouting geniuses based on consuming all these videos, there is so much more that goes into this. Otherwise, we would have no use for scouts or people anywhere.
So on that note, who is Maxim Tsyplakov? All we know is that he's a 25-year-old winger who plays for Spartak Moscow, and he shoots left. Mm-hmm. He can play either wing, which is awesome. He's anywhere between 6'2" and 6'3", depending on which website you're going to take a look at. And he jumped from 10 goals in 63 games a year ago to 31 goals in 65 games this past season, 47 points. In the playoffs, he was less dominant with 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points in 11 games. Once again, Elliot Friedman reports anywhere between close to about 12 teams interested in his services, and they have talked to him. And look, the Canadiens have a pretty good resource in the KHL, of course. Nick Bobrov's father, I believe Sergei is a consultant, or is he not with SKA?
I'm sure they know the player. I'm sure they know what the player is all about. I'm sure they have had enough eyes on the player to make their own judgment on him. And I'm sure any information that they need on the player would be provided to them by the player's agent. So we'll see where that goes. Haven't seen a ton of those random kind of KHL signings turn into guaranteed good players over here.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And every year it's the same thing. Everybody gets excited. Well, so did you hear? Elliot mentioned that player.
Yeah.
Yes, if he's being mentioned, it's because teams do have interest, and they have seen and they have noticed that he scored a lot of goals, and he has an interest in coming over here. But I can't, who's the last one who was a huge, and I'm not putting you on the spot here because I think you'd have to do some Google research, but who came over here and suddenly became a bona fide top 6 forward his first year and became the guy? It's so rare.
Yeah.
It's
one guy who was somebody in the National Hockey League and then left for the KHL and then came back and then went back and then came back and had some pretty good seasons in the National Hockey League. I know you know who I'm talking about.
Radulov?
Correct.
Yeah.
But once again, he was established National Hockey player. He had picked up 58 points in 81 games with the Nashville Predators before leaving for the KHL, in which he played 4 seasons, came back to Nashville for a handful of games, went back to the KHL for 4 more seasons before coming back to the National Hockey League for about 6 seasons, and then going back to the KHL to finish off his career for a couple of seasons. But to think one guy who came over from the KHL and just lit it up right away. No one comes to the top of my head, but I know that everyone will be watching. Somebody will come up with something, but no one.
Right.
No one.
So your producer, your producer Shane Goman just said Kuzmenko. And
Kuzmenko had a pretty.
Kuzmenko came
after 40 goals or something. Yeah,
with St. Petersburg, 39 goals with Vancouver, and Vancouver. He was a healthy scratch quite a bit this year.
That's the name, though.
Calgary, right?
Yeah, that's the name. That's a guy who came over at around 25, 26 years old from the KHL after spending about 5 years there and scored 39 goals. That's the name. And I guess, but
Then he had
He was
43 with Vancouver and was a healthy scratch quite a bit and traded to Calgary where he was given a great opportunity and kind of garbage time
in the Elias Lindholm deal,
putting up 14 goals. And I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying it can't happen. Players are scouted from all over the world, and sometimes you unearth a gem and boom, like all of a sudden you've got someone who can really help you for years going forward. It's just every year we get super excited about the next guy on that list, and it usually ends up being something that's like, well, he could be a third line, fourth line guy who maybe scores.
Eric, there's one who a former player from the KHL who played for the Canadians, and I thought, like, I saw flashes, and at one point I said, I think he's got something, but it's just a question of putting it all together. But he never did, and I know who I'm talking about as well, right?
I'm curious.
Juraj Slafkovsky.
Yeah.
I thought I saw tools and I saw flashes.
We all
said it's just a question of, we did fall for it.
I really did, because I went to go see him skate in the summer, and all the tools were there. He just had no idea how to put them in the bag. Like, excellent skater, excellent shooter, but could not play the physical brand of hockey in the NHL. Could not find the way to get that shot off with any frequency and accuracy. Could not find a way. What was the line that Mark Bergevin always said? You could be the fastest skater, but oftentimes it doesn't matter if you're skating to the wrong spot first.
Yeah.
It just seemed like the game didn't, and I'm not taking anything away from him as a player, because honestly, he was great in the KHL, and I think he went back there and had success, and he showed flashes, like you said, in the NHL. I really thought that he would pan out and be a really good player. And this style of game just wasn't for him.
No, unfortunately not. But anyway, okay. So much more to talk about. So the draft. I've heard a lot over the last little while. The Canadians have the 5th pick. Are they going to pick? If they do pick, are they going to pick a forward? Are players so grouped together that the Canadians might actually trade down and give up their pick to have an inferior pick and another pick? And some people talk about the possibility of actually trading up. But when was the last time you saw a team trade their 1, 2, 3, or 4? When was the last time you saw that happen?
It was Brian Burke and the Sedins, and with what he did.
Brian Burke and the Sedins in 1999, correct.
Yeah, with what he did, nobody ever wanted to do it again. I asked that specific question in the last press conference to Ken Hughes, like, what do you think the realistic possibility is of moving up? Because it becomes a fantasy, honestly. Like, I look at last year, and I asked them that specifically because I know a lot of teams were interested in trading for the 5th pick, which the Canadians held. And in fact, there was a number of teams that wanted to trade up to that pick to take David Reinbeck, including the one that ended up taking, as far as I was concerned, speaking with several sources in the lead up and afterwards, the team that ended up taking Michkov was one of the teams that was very interested in David Reinbeck. Again, it never materialized. Nashville, with Barry Trotz, he made no bones about the fact that he was trying to move up in the draft to anybody who would listen, and nobody seemed particularly interested in him offering his goaltender, his pick, Askarov. It's such a hard thing to do. Now, trading down, I could see validity in that for the Canadians, and that's not taking into account whatever other trade they might have up their sleeve. Because honestly, I'm expecting something. I don't know. I don't have a guarantee for you that they're going to make a trade on the draft floor or whatever it is. It just has a feel to it that it's possible. And the idea of them trading down, especially if, the best forwards that they're after weren't necessarily or were taken in the top 4 picks, and somebody wants to get up there and take a certain player and they still feel they can get one of the better forwards available or right-handed defensemen available lower down and make a trade and end up getting a forward through that process, not one drafted. Do you know what I mean, Tony? Like, there's a lot of different permutations of what can happen here, and that's that's basically my main message here. Like I wrote it in my own piece after the draft lottery that like I think the Canadians could stick at 5. They could take a forward, and they could justify, no matter what anybody says, that they're taking the best player available. Like, it's all over the map. I spoke to 3 guys who run amateur scouting departments. They didn't share their list with me, but what they did say was like, give me a guess as to who you think will go in the top 10. It would be different if you asked 15 people. Like,
you're right.
It's spread all over the place, and that's why need starts to become more of an equation for certain teams. So it's very hard to predict what's going to happen above and below the Canadians. It's very hard to predict what's going to happen with the Canadians. And I'm just sitting here kind of thinking, like, I look back at their history and I should probably expect the unexpected, because that's what they've done under this administration.
And look, I know a lot of people are probably saying, who can you get at number 5? And I saw this on the internet, and I think it's the last number 5 picks overall in the last 20 years or something like that. Carey Price, obviously, in 05, Kessel in 06, Alzner in 07, that dipped. Shen in 08, the other Shen in 09.
By the way, Alzner was a very, very solid, reliable, good player for Washington.
No, he was.
Yeah, just Montreal.
Yeah, just not a fit. Yeah, Nino Niederreiter in 2010 to the Islanders. Ryan Strome 2011 to the Islanders. Morgan Riley to the Leafs in 2012. Elias Lindholm to the Hurricanes in 2013. Michael Del Cal to the Islanders. Noah Finn to the Hurricanes. Oh, here we have it. Oli Ulevi to the Canucks. Elias Peterson to the Canucks. Barrett Hayton to the Coyotes. Alex Turcotte to the Kings. Jake Sanderson to the Senators, Kent Johnson to the Blue Jackets, Cutter Gauthier to the Flyers, and David Reinbacher to the Canadians. Hey, if the Montreal Canadiens can get a player of the quality of a Carey Price or a Phil Kessel or a Morgan Riley or an Elias Lindstrom or an Elias Pettersson, they're going to be okay. They're going to be okay. But I think I never know what you're going to get.
They draft 5th overall. They're going to get a great player. Like, there's enough of them within that realm. No matter what happens within those first 4 picks, I think they're going to end up with a really, really good player. Like, I'm confident.
What's next for you? Like, is there a Canadian story that you're monitoring right now on this Monday, May 13th, before we let you go?
To be honest with you, I have these couple weeks off and then get kind of back engaged. We'll see. We'll see what I'm going to be covering. But within the time frame that I'm off, the only time I'm really thinking about hockey outside of watching it is just talking with you. I'm trying to get my own little 2-week break because it's been a long season.
Good for you.
So good for you. I come on, I talk with you. I watch the playoffs. I'm obviously always thinking about what could be happening with the Canadians, what's up next. I know we saw some Arber Xhekaj rumors coming out, and I don't like to dismiss other people's stuff. But, I poked around on that too, and there's nothing recent that's happened in that dossier. No, you could understand how a lot of teams might be interested in the player. I think speculation stems from when he ended up in the minors earlier this year and teams calling what's the story. But there's been no recent activity on Arber Xhekaj. No calls fielded regarding.
Yeah, and there's always going to be teams that are interested. The Montreal Canadiens have 2,000 defensemen in their system. And Arber Xhekaj is a very inexpensive one, and he's a left-handed defenseman, and he's the kind of defenseman that a lot of teams would like to have because he protects his teammates, because he's a pretty good player, because he's tough and he's mean, and he's got packs a pretty heavy shot. And it seems like every team that goes far in the playoffs ends up having a guy that has those kinds of tools in his toolbox. Eric, this has been a lot of fun. Appreciate it. You and I will talk soon, okay?
Take care, Tony.
Very good. I have great news, by the way. We're giving away an exclusive signed Samuel Montembeault frame from his first NHL game in collaboration with Era Frames, who this part of their division has become unrivaled. There are only 5 of these frames in the world. To enter, number 1, follow the Sick Podcasts. Number 2, retweet the post. Number 3, comment Sick. So if you go follow the Sick Podcast on Twitter and you retweet the post and you comment Sick and subscribe to our YouTube channel for an extra entry, you have a chance to win it. And look where I put it right now. for those of you watching saw what I just did, but those of you who are listening have no idea why I took about 10 seconds off there. But I have it right in my studio. And look, it's, to make sure that it's all protected, it doesn't get scratched or anything. I still have some of the bubble wrap around it. But this is an absolute beauty. And I had it right behind my Guy Lafleur chair, and with the chair not touching it. So it's nice and beautifully protected. And as much as I'd love to put this up in my place, it will give me great pleasure to actually give it away to one lucky winner. So all the best of luck to everyone entering. And once again, take a look at our Twitter handle at The Sick Podcast. And once you do, follow and comment Sick, S-I-C-K. And once again, subscribe to our YouTube channel for an extra entry. And we're going to be giving that away over the next couple of weeks here. So all the best of luck to everyone entering this contest. And special thanks to Era Frames. I had a chance to meet them. The people there are absolutely fantastic. They're perfectionists. And I don't remember when was the last time I saw somebody do the quality of work that they do for what they do. So thank you very much to them. We're very, very happy to partner with them on this and hopefully much more going forward in the very near future. Once again, special thanks to Energy Transportation Group, our partner and sponsor. Also, special thanks to La Bit TB. Special thanks to Playground, and special thanks to Accent Insurance Solutions. I want to thank Shane Gaumont and Master Control and Jimmy, who's actually on a stage with us right now. And hopefully Jimmy will be able to join us on a full-time basis. Gentlemen, thank you very much for all your help behind the scenes, which seldom is, you're not the ones in front of the camera, but you're just as important as me, who is in front of the camera right now, because without you guys, I can't do what I do. So for Shane Gaumont and Jimmy, who they haven't told me his last name yet, but I'm sure I'll find out next show. For now, he's Trainee Jimmy. That's how he comes out. Trainee Jimmy. Thanks all for watching. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple if you can. It's our way of feeling the love. Continue to enjoy the NHL playoffs. We'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same place, on the Sick Podcast. I'm Marinaro.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. La Vida TB, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.